Welcome to the show, sports fans. This is the Treasure Valley Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.
That's right. Welcome in another edition of the Treasure Valley Prepcast on IdahoSports.com, your one-stop shop for District 3 athletics week in, week out. Brandon Baney, as always, joined by our Treasure Valley resident and expert, Logan Green. LG, what's going on?
Hey, Brandon. After a busy month, I will say, of basketball, I'm ready to be a basketball fan now. That's what I'm excited for, to be honest, as we ramp up with college coming down to the end here. So it's always a fun time in March.
Yes, you are wearing your Idaho Vandals hoodie. They were one of the first teams to fire their coach this year across Division I hoops. So,
I was talking to some people about this, some people that have been around the program, and they're like, he's a good guy. He had some tough circumstances, but, at some point you got to win, and, it's tough. And I just don't know how. A couple of years ago, fantastic team the Vandals had, great 2 seed consistently in the Big Sky. And then just a significant cliff dropped, has the Vandals basketball. Not that that's what this podcast is for, but you know what, you got to win. But they play in the nicest arena, right, in the league, the new ICCU arena up there in Moscow. So should be able to retain Idaho athletes, maybe that are going elsewhere to play basketball. You'd hope you see them play locally. But that's just my selfish hopes. But my other team is hopefully going to make it. My Wolfpack will hopefully be dancing. So
yeah, NC State at the ACC tournament got a big win yesterday. I think that win yesterday puts them in, honestly.
So I always thought that today is the play-in, right, between them. I just don't understand. So, again, we could have another podcast, Brandon, about college basketball. I don't understand how the Big 12 can have all these teams that they're like, oh, you're in, when they're like 6-12 in conference. Give me a break, and then Clemson is out. You know what? Like, the net is hilarious. NC State wins by 20 last night, bumps Virginia Tech down because they lost so much, so they lose a quad one win. That's a conversation for a whole nother day. This is not expanding the tournament here in Idaho. That it's on par with that net, right? It's just, how can you do so well that it hurts you? Anyways.
Okay. One more college.
I could talk about this all day. Everybody, you're just gonna have to endure it. You've got no choice.
It'll tie into high school hoops. Watch this transition. So, you want to know why the Big 12 has all these sub 500 teams in league, and they're going to get 7 of 10 teams to the big dance? And it's because the league is quality, and the drop off at the bottom isn't too severe. Where the ACC is this 15 team monolith where, Louisville sucks, Florida State was awful, Boston College, Notre Dame, and we talk about this in high school with the SIC, right? Especially that 5A SIC, the bottom of the league. And because it's such a large league, 15 teams in the ACC, 13 teams in the 5A SIC, those bottom teams are naturally going to have, not good records, and that's going to pull the rest of the league down. I think that's what's happening in the ACC.
But if you tie it in, right? Okay, we've seen it now twice where a, quote, low seed from the SIC who maybe should barely be in goes on a run to the state championship game. And you know what? Miami did it in the ACC last year, made a run to the Elite Eight. Carolina and Duke go to the Final Four, and the ACC is I'm sorry, I'm an ACC homer, and I will admit it through and through, and I am not unbiased about that at all. See, I even got my little I'm pulling it down. This was my favorite purchase as a child, this little Chick-fil-A Wolfpack cow. They used to sell them at the Chick-fil-A's in North Carolina growing up. You could buy whichever cow you wanted for your team. Nobody ever bought the Georgia Tech ones. Those were always the last one. We don't have anybody else, but we got plenty of Georgia Tech. I'm a homer, but and I guess that translates over to, I could say I'm a SIC homer and District 3 homer. We didn't come away with anything right this week. Last weekend in terms of the state tournaments. any championship trophies. But there was some great performances, good runs in the tournament, maybe some surprising things that people did not necessarily expect to see in the tournament. I mean, it starts with Meridian, right? Completely unexpected to see the Warriors make a run to the state championship. Probably unexpected to anybody besides the Warriors themselves.
Yes. They come in as the number 7 seed at state. They are playing Owyhee in the first round. And coming in, the consensus amongst fans was, oh, yeah, it's going to be Lake City and Owyhee again. And Owyhee got a lot better since they lost to them in December. And I'll tell you, it was the first game of the day. There's something about that noon game at state. It's hard for teams to shake off the cobwebs, to the point where it got down to the end, and Owyhee has the ball in regulation in a tie ball game with about 2 minutes to go. And this was such an uncharacteristic thing that I saw, because all year Owyhee has been the aggressor. They've been the team dictating the tempo, dictating the flow to other teams. They held the ball for the final 2 minutes of regulation. Now, they had a timeout sprinkled in there to drop a play, but basically Owyhee held it for one final shot. They missed a 3 from the corner. It went to overtime, and in overtime, Meridian had, despite being on defense for more than 2 minutes, Meridian had all the momentum. Owyhee, I thought, by stalling late in the game, totally took them out of their rhythm. And they were already out of their rhythm a little bit, because if you look back into that fourth quarter, they hadn't hit a field goal, a shot from the field, since around the 6-7 minute mark of the fourth quarter. Beyond that, all of their scoring came at the foul line as they were in the bonus. And so I just thought Owyhee was totally out of rhythm in that game, and Meridian seized the day, seized the opportunity, and it was a great win for the Warriors. And Owyhee, rebounded to win the consolation trophy. And Coach Andy Harrington, says, it's not the trophy we wanted. It's not the game we wanted to be in, but I'm proud of the way my guys rebounded and refocused, and they certainly did. But man, for a state opener at 5A, overtime win for Meridian, can't ask for a better way to start.
No, yeah, and then they follow it up with a win against Mountain View, who, I mean, a lot of people were looking at that Mountain View Owyhee round 3 matchup where it could go either way. And those were the two teams, I think, coming in that people thought could push Lake City. Meridian did a decent job there in the first half. They led for, significant portions against Lake City in that championship game, kind of just ran out of gas there at the end. But kudos to them for making that run. I mean, and that's the thing about the SIC that I've always thought is that, while you've got maybe a cliff that drops, like you said, with the ACC, some, those middle of the pack teams are still good. They're just dealing with very good teams at the top, like Owyhee, like Mountain View. And then for girls, like Boise, like Rocky Mountain, they're just having to deal with everybody else, right? That's competing, and Meridian gets it done, right? They get on a roll at the right time and make it to the state championship. Very reminding, or I can't get the word out. Very reminiscent. There it is, of a Centennial last year, right? Who also made a unexpected roll to a state championship appearance.
Yes, it was a great tournament for District 3 overall. Mountain View takes home the third place trophy. Owyhee takes home the consolation trophy. The second place trophy goes to Meridian, and Eagle also played really well. Eagle almost beat Madison in the opening round. They had a shot at the game tying 3. Landon White, his 3 fell short, and that bounced Eagle to the consolation side, where they had to play Owyhee in that consolation final. And for Meridian, I thought really they just were unafraid. They just were never afraid of any opponent they played. Owyhee, significant size advantage, right? With especially, Rasmussen kind of anchoring the middle there. Meridian didn't care. They took it to the basket, and that allowed them to then kick it out to shooters. And they hit a lot of perimeter shots for sure. Same thing with Mountain View. Mountain View had the size advantage. It wasn't as pronounced, but Mountain View's problem was they couldn't get anything inside. Meridian completely shut it off and forced Mountain View to take shots from the outside. And by the way, Mountain View, great opening round win over Timberline. Logan Housemite, the freshman, banks in the game-winning runner from the lane with like 1.7 seconds to play. And so Mountain View, a good win there. And then in the championship, even Meridian continued to be unafraid despite playing big, bad Lake City. The guy who best represents Meridian and their attitude to me is Nate Reynolds, the all-state linebacker who is kind of the de facto center for the team, despite being 6'2". But I'll tell you what, he pushed around Blake Buchanan, who's, 9 inches taller than him from Lake City. And he pushed around, Dawson Wall from Mountain View, who's got 2 inches on him. And so that fearlessness to me was really impressive.
Yeah, and they not only that, but they shot the ball well there in that state championship game. Maybe the best shooting performance of the year, right in that first half. They were lights out. They just could not miss, and they were, I think there was people in the stands saying, "What's going on?" And the 4A game was completely full, right? And there was a lot of people that stayed for that game, and it was packed. And I think a lot of people were like, well, I'll check this out for 10 minutes and wait for Lake City to roll, and then I'll leave. And that it didn't happen. Lake City pulls away in the end, but it's not till that middle, late in the third quarter, beginning of the fourth, where any sort of separation occurs. And what a great environment though for that championship game, for everybody. I think that's the fullest I've seen it. Even down to the 2A level, there was a lot of people there. 3A, that place was, 75% full. And then the 4 and 5A, you couldn't find a seat. So kudos to everybody in the Treasure Valley that turned out for those games and around the state who came in to watch.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to watch, certainly. And so congrats to all the 5A SIC teams as they take 3 of the 4 trophies home from state. You mentioned the 2A state tournament. I think that's the next biggest story, where Melba was attempting to defend its 2A state crown. Came into the championship game unbeaten on the year, but Bear Lake said, we don't really care about that. And Bear Lake ends up winning. I wasn't there for that game, Logan, so I'm curious to hear what you thought about it.
So you talked about why he's stalling, right?
Yeah.
I'm ready for a shot clock, Brandon. I'm ready. I was extremely frustrated during that game, and I'm sure it's not Melba. I'm sure all the Bear Lake people can rag on me all you want. And that's okay. I'll take it. But Melba was up 10, right, at halftime. And Bear Lake came out real hot in the second half, and they made a lot of baskets. Melba went cold. They were struggling to make shots, struggling to hit stuff. Bear Lake took advantage. They take a lead. Now they took a lead, third quarter, beginning of the fourth, and it was around the 5-minute mark of the fourth quarter. They were up, 6, 8, somewhere in there, Bear Lake was, and they stalled. And they held the ball for a minute and a half each possession at least. And I get it. I get the thought of, well, then you go in and you take the ball away. That's the thought from people. If you want it, go take it. But this is not football where you can say, all right, guys, we're going to stack the box and we're going to blitz and we're going to stop them on 3 consecutive plays, and we are going to get the ball back. There is no guarantee that you will. They could hold it for 5 minutes. There is no guarantee, right? You eventually have to foul, but they don't have to do anything. They did not have to shoot. It's different. You can't just go in and reach and steal the ball every time, right? If you want to play a clean game, it's just not the same, right? You're going to get called for fouls if you try to reach in and yank that thing away. For me, I wasn't broadcasting it. I was there more as a fan, right? As a fan, as a no dog in the fight type thing. But man, it was very frustrating to see that. And that just from a fan perspective, that, all right, guys, we've got a lead with 5 minutes to go. Let's just stop. And I just don't like that. There's no incentive for anybody to do anything. And that's going to end, right? With the shot clock, that's going to end. And you're going to have to put it up. You're going to have to guess what, Brandon, you're going to have to do? You're going to have to play basketball. You're going to have to go out and you're going to have to attempt to score the basketball and continue as you go, and not just say, you know what, let's just call it good and continue on. I get it. It's part of the game. You got to play to what you've got here at the high school right now. There's no shot clock. So
Yeah.
you play to win the game, and if that's the way you want to win it, fine, so be it. But after this, if anybody's going to play college ball, that doesn't happen. It doesn't. There's a shot clock, and so again, I'm not trying to. They did what they needed to do to win. Congratulations. I mean, you did it. That's great coaching. That's great on them to be able to hold. It takes skill to hold the ball, right? And then eventually, if you need to foul, you've got to make your free throws. And they did everything they needed to do to win. I'm not taking away anything from Bear Lake there. I just, as a fan, was a little frustrated in watching that, saying there's no incentive here to play basketball, like, right? That's just my thought. If it's wrong, fine. If it's right, great. Like that's just my opinion. I'm excited to see that shot clock come into play because I think it's going to let the better basketball teams win game. That is not to say that Bear Lake was not the better basketball team. That's not what I'm saying at all. At all. Like they played great. That second half was phenomenal by them. But I think going forward, you have to play basketball, right? It's not going to be all right. Can I hold a ball for 2.5 minutes and maybe get a lead and then stall it out? So all right, Logan's monologue is now over. I'll step off the soapbox, but that was just one thing that frustrated me in that 2A game, and Melbo was clearly frustrated just in the second half overall. Just really struggled to make a basket. Just struggled. Down the stretch, and it's unfortunate to see the season end that way for a local team, just right there on the edge of going back to back.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong. I didn't do any regular season SIC games, but at the 5A level, didn't they use the shot clock?
They did, and honestly, it was never an issue for any SIC game I did, girls or boys. We rarely saw any shot clock violations, and it was maybe on a possession where the defense forced it. The teams weren't looking to stall the ball, and maybe that was because the shot clock was there, and they
Yes.
say, "All right, I'm not going to stall. I'm just going to play basketball." And I thought it was great. I mean, it never came into my mind ever until state. That was the first time this year watching basketball where I was like, "Man, this is frustrating." And maybe because personally watched that all season long, at least at the 4A and 5A SIC level, where a lot of teams are playing with a shot clock. So
yeah, and that's to circle back to the Owyhee thing. That's why it made it all the more perplexing to me, because they had played with a shot clock all and had been geared towards, okay, we've got 30 seconds to score, and they just completely went the opposite way, and the players aren't used to that. They've been playing a different way all year. So anyways, very interesting exercise there, and you're right, next year shot clock will be here and it'll be a good thing. The better
and I really do. I think it'll be good because I mean, I know there's teams, like I look back at the girls tournament that I did, Oakley used that to their advantage, stalling and holding lap play, and really just not having to score so quickly. I think in a run and gun game, that's a different outcome, honestly. And it's going to disadvantage some teams like that, but at the end of the day, the better basketball teams, I think, are going to come out on top.
Yep, I completely agree with you there. You were personally on the call for the 3A state tournament, Logan, where the teams from District 3, like Homedale went 2-0, right?
Yep,
which was surprising. But Fruitland really impressed you.
And if we start with the Homedale really quick, they're a team that I thought could surprisingly make a run. I thought that they had the pieces, and that's not to say they didn't. Snake River is just a good team. They're tall and lanky, and Homedale really struggled with that. There's really no big man down low. Elijah Joyner is their closest thing to a big man, but Snake River just had three guys that were bigger than him that didn't even play the post, right? And so it just a mismatch, to be completely honest. There was nothing skill wise there. They then lost a great game to Buell. Buell came in and they were pretty good. Like, I think a lot of people thought they were going to go 2-0. I think I personally did too, but I was impressed by Buell and what they were able to do. Jackson Dines had a shot at the buzzer to win it. Great setup. They inbounded with only about 3 seconds left and got a good look at it. Just could not hit the shot at the horn. But if we flip over to Fruitland, that was a team that they came to play. and they were pushing Teton around, who had a clear size advantage. I mean, it was visibly noticeable at almost every position that Fruitland was way smaller than Teton. And it went to overtime. Fruitland had a shot to win it there in regulation, couldn't get it to go, so it went to overtime. But I tell you, Fruitland had some great ball players showdown. Like Eddie Rodriguez, that's probably one of the funnest basketball players I have seen in recent memory. He was fun to watch. He was on for that Teton game. Played well, and then going to the next round, they knock off Kimberly, and then they knock off Buell and win the consolation prize. But Fruitland was fun. Luke Baranaga, fun to watch. He's a great basketball player, just a great person overall. I think he had was talking to the coaches beforehand. He's going to Notre Dame to do business there. He's probably going to be the valedictorian. He started the chess club at the school. Like, he just does everything. And he had some huge plays in that game against Kimberly that they won. Zane Bidwell played well for Fruitland as well. They just played really well. I was very impressed with them. If they had gotten the next round game against Sugar, I think that they could have also pushed them. Again, the size advantage for Homedale and Fruitland, both very noticeable compared to the Eastern Idaho teams. And one thing that I think, and Lance Taylor talked about this, there's just a different style of play around the state, right? It's more finesse over here in the Treasure Valley. I feel like that, in my opinion, it's more like that. Eastern Idaho, it's physical, right? They could call 100 fouls in a game, but they usually don't, because that's just the way it is. And for specifically for Bonners Ferry, I think it took them some time to adjust to that against Snake River and say, whoa, you guys are going to push us around. All right, we got to figure out how to react to this. And it took them time. They eventually caught back up and figured that out. But back to Fruitland, they were good. They were fun to watch. They had a chance to win that game against Teton. Probably should have had it there at the buzzer. But congratulations to them to finish out their season strong. I was just very impressed with Fruitland this week.
Yeah, as you were talking about Fruitland, you know what popped into my head, Logan? It was something you and I both witnessed last spring, where at the 3A state baseball tournament, Fruitland kind of came in. They came in as the number 7 seed. People weren't giving them much of a chance to do anything. They played Kimberly, the 2 seed, knocked them out. Fruitland got all the way to the championship game, and honestly, a handful of plays away from possibly winning.
They were the only ones to do anything to Marsh Valley. I think didn't Marsh Valley 10-run Bonners Ferry in the first round, and then 10-run Sugar Salem in the second round.
Yeah,
something like that. And then interesting, almost the same exact field, right, at state baseball that was at state basketball. Almost, not exactly, but pretty close. And yeah, they've got good athletes at Fruitland. They always do. I think back a couple years ago, they didn't do great in the conference in football. They were like 3-7 or something like that. Went on the road in the first round and absolutely destroyed Kimberly in the first round in a game that nobody thought they had a chance to win. And I mean, they were better. So, you look at Fruitland and just say they're going to continue to put athletes out on the field no matter what sport it is. And girls soccer is another example, right, of just good performances all around for them.
Very good coaching at Fruitland as well, across the board. So, okay, let's talk 1A D2 hoops here real quick. And I want to divert for just a second. At state, across the board, 95% of the fans, parents, spectators were awesome. Excellent. There was 5% though. It was bad. It was to me, Logan, I've been doing this for 3 years now in Idaho. To me, fan behavior was the worst I've ever seen at state.
Yep. I saw one for the girls game. It wasn't even a tournament that I was calling personally. I was just there for a game in the midst. And I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed for the players. I was embarrassed for anybody there. I kept turning around, having to say, I never said anything to them, but it's like, guys, do you hear what's coming out of your mouth right now? Like, these are kids playing. But like you said, generally everybody's okay, but it's those few bad apples that just make it leave a poor taste in your mouth.
So Lucas Gebhardt and I were broadcasting the 5A championship game, and the Lake City fans were sitting behind us. And there was a foul called right before the end of the third quarter, and 50-50 call, and went against Lake City. And a fan from Lake City. So to give people an idea, we're broadcasting courtside, right at the Idaho Center, and then probably 5 feet behind us, is a metal barrier, right, that separates us from the crowd. And there was a guy from Coeur d'Alene cheering for Lake City who leaned over the metal barrier, in my mind, invaded our space.
Oh, it's not even there. There's about 5 feet from the bleachers to our seats.
Yes.
And then in the middle of that is the barrier. So the barrier is only like 2 feet from where we're at. And so if anybody's leaning over that, they have encroached your space.
There, he leaned into our space, is yelling at the referee expletives. I'm sure our broadcast picked it up. I mean, you could probably hear him through our headsets, to the point where we took a break for the end of the third quarter, and Lucas got up and turned around to the guy and said, "Hey, everything you just said went out over the air, and knock it off." And the guy said, "Good, I'm glad." He sat down and shut up after that. I think he kind of realized that he probably had crossed the line there. And that to me was the most egregious example, but it was, every classification across the board, fan decorum's got to get better, because we're losing referees, we're losing coaches. Knock it off. If you're one of those parents that's there just hooting and hollering, shut up and sit down and watch the game.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah. There was a lot of it in our tournament. There was one game in particular where there was a call towards the end of the game that somebody did not like or appreciate. And man, it was just not good. And I had to take a shower afterwards. I was getting spit on all game, because at Meridian you sit on the floor too, and everybody's yelling at you. And it makes you uncomfortable. Like, as if you're there, right, and you're in it, and you're the one that's yelling, I think you're so tunnel visioned, right? And just step back. Like, it's embarrassing. Like, and it's awkward to sit there and have to take that in. And if I was a fan of a team and somebody was doing that, all of a sudden it looks bad on me, right? As a fan of that school, if somebody else hears that, a third party says, "Man, all those," I'll use my high school so that I'm not singling out, all those Northern Durham fans, they're the worst. They're always, they're always screaming at people and yelling. And I, as a Northern Durham fan, was sitting over here, had nothing to do with it, but it was John's dad over here that was screaming. But then I get lumped into it. So not only that, you're forcing this image on other fans of your school that want nothing to do with that. So, like you said, Brandon, just stop. Just stop.
And before anybody thinks I'm just singling out Lake City and picking on Lake City, that was my personal experience.
Yeah.
And I bet I could talk to every single broadcaster from IdahoSports.com, and they would be able to say, yes, this school. It was across the board. So I'm not picking on anybody. My personal experience was with Lake City.
And the experience I told you about it at the girls tournament, it was a team that I have covered a dozen times over my time here, and always had great experiences with. Know the coaches well, have talked to them, outside of this. And I just was like, really, guys? And that's why I think it surprised me, is because I feel like I knew their fan base a little bit better and expected more. And anyways, I guess you could go on all day about it, but just be better. I think that's the story.
Sorry, one more tangent. This extends to social media as well. We posted a lot of content on social media throughout the course of state basketball. And instead of using, like recaps of our games to go, oh, that was a great win for this team. I had fans from schools that weren't even at state. And you know what? I'll call them out because it's public. You can see it on our Facebook page. A Rigby fan got on and said, Highland lost to Lake City pretty lopsidedly in the first round. Oh, I guess Highland can't win when they don't have the refs in their back pocket like they did at districts. And it's like, honestly, Rigby, like if you had gone to state, like the same thing probably would have happened.
Yeah.
And like, who cares? Your team's not at state. Like, why are you even commenting on that? I saw it at the opposite level, 1AD2, where a Castleford parent got on and said, I wasn't too impressed with Grace, even though they beat us in the third place game. We were just spent from holding Lapway to a season low in points. And Grace was like, Yeah, we had to play a semifinal too against the eventual champions, and that didn't
I
seem
did
to
that
affect us.
game. Grace was just way better.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. You want to hear it? Castleford, that's what happened. They were really good. It's funny though. Coach Harrington from Hawaii, he came and sat down with Castleford, and even that couldn't help him out. Grace is just big, and Castleford wasn't. So it's kind of funny to hear that side.
Yeah.
You see what you want to see, right? You see what you want to see, but we get those comments too about us on social media, and it always makes you feel nice, right? When people like, I think back, me and Brandon, for all you out there and you don't know, we spent all day at a cross country meet in the blazing sun with smoke. We were breathing in all day, only to have one comment on social media say that sucked, and it's like, thanks guys, we appreciate it. I just like, if you don't got anything nice to say, just don't say it. It's just doesn't do anybody any favors. Yeah,
And it's like just take the time to say congratulations to Grace. They played a great game. I'm disappointed we lost, instead of
yeah,
I wasn't that impressed. Like, I don't know. I just anyways. And again, it's all public. You can see it on our Facebook page, IdahoSports.com. So it's all there. All right. Now I got off topic talking about fan decorum because I wanted to bring it back to the 1A D2, Logan, because I was on the call for the 1A D2 third place game between Council and Cascade. Third time they had played that year. It was at Caldwell High School, and basically at Caldwell High, where we broadcast, it's in the top row of the bleachers. And I was in amongst the Cascade fans. And you might be thinking, oh man, here he goes. He's going to tee it up. No, they were great. I had a great time with the Cascade fans. They were polite, they were respectful. So I wanted to single out Cascade and their fan base specifically for being great sports about it. They didn't even win the game. Council won the game.
right.
And the whole time, Cascade fans stayed positive, cheered on their team. There wasn't anything bad towards the officials or towards Council as a team. Like, if you want to look at an example of how to act at a game, talk to the people in Cascade, because as I was literally in the middle of their fan section broadcasting, I thought they did a tremendous job.
Yeah, and what's funny, Cascade, I had to eat crow on the phone with some of them over the past week. I called one of the businesses up there for they always like to do a sponsorship during the Cascade games, and she came out and said, "You said we would lose." So, Kathy, if you're listening, I've been telling people about that all week, that you called me out on it, and I'm here to eat it, and I ate it right there on the phone with Kathy, from Cascade Auto. But that was funny. They were just a team that got hot at the end of the season and went on a roll. And I've done lots of Cascade games over the years, and like you said, they always just have a good group of people at their events.
Yeah, so nicely done for Cascade. Nicely done for Council as well, winning that third place game. That was a hard-fought win for them, and Council looked good for sure, and as did Cascade. So that's going to put a wrap on our state basketball coverage and our winter sports coverage here at IdahoSports.com as we get ready to transition to the spring sports season, Logan. Usually when we're transitioning from one season to another, we take a week off from the podcast, kind of decompress, allow a couple of spring results to roll in. And especially in the Treasure Valley, weather isn't a huge problem, but like in East Idaho, North Idaho, Magic Valley, there's nothing's happening because there's too much snow on the ground. So there's not really anything to talk about. So if it's cool with you, we'll just take next week off, and then we'll come back in 2 weeks and kind of dive into spring sports stuff.
Yeah, even here, I mean, it's snowed every day for like 10 straight days. Now it's different. It hasn't stuck to anything. It snows like half an inch and then it melts. But even then, it's like yesterday, it snowed it was a whiteout for like 10 minutes and then it went away. It was crazy. It was really weird, but
yeah. And we're recording this on Thursday, March 9th. I will give a quick spring sports shout out to the Fruitland softball team. They did defeat Marcine last night in their season opener. Marcine softball coach Courtney Ford basically said, yeah, the game was called in the fifth inning because it started to snow, and Fruitland had the lead. So Fruitland got a shortened win.
Yeah, it was it was crazy. It was just like absolute whiteout for like 15 minutes and then it went away.
Yeah.
Funny, but yeah, sounds good. And we'll, get into baseball. So we've already gotten one baseball email. Somebody emailed in to me and you, Brandon. I don't know if you saw it amidst all of the stuff, but we got a lot of feedback from baseball last year from fans. So if you've got something you want us to talk about with baseball, just send us that email again, because I thought it was great last year. We got so many people writing in that we had a lot to talk about, specifics down to players,
Yes.
things like that. So if you've got something that you want us to talk about, just send us an email again, and we'll make sure we discuss it.
Yeah, and baseball, softball, tennis, track and field, any sport, golf for the smaller schools. I know Cole Valley Christian's got some really good golfers.
Yeah.
So if there's a team, an athlete, a story you want us to cover, especially in the spring, because there's a lot going on and it's hard for us to have it all on our radar. Unfortunately, spring sports often get neglected compared to fall and winter sports, and we want to change that. So if there is a story, team, athlete, spring sports specific that you want us to talk about, you can send either one of us an email, Brandon at IdahoSports.com, Logan at IdahoSports.com, and we would be happy to talk about it. So, yeah.
Let us know.
All right. Well, until then, thanks for tuning into the Treasure Valley Prepcast, everybody. We'll see you back here in 2 weeks.
Yeah, and let us know if you want a Brandon Logan college basketball podcast as well. We'll be all over it. That's extra gravy on top.
Yeah, that's you want a bonus college hoops March Madness breakdown. We'll fill out our brackets.
That would be kind of fun to do. Maybe we should do that. Can we just do an Idaho? There's no money on the line, just an Idaho sports bracket pool with around the state. We'll have to talk about that. That would be kind of fun. But
I think we've done it in the past, but yeah, that's one we'll have to run up the flagpole to corporate. And
to corporate. We'll see if it passes.
See how that goes. But thanks for tuning in to the Treasure Valley Prepcast, everybody. For Logan Green, I'm Brandon Baney, and we'll see you next time on IdahoSports.com.